the student class, or another constructor. Let's don't worry about that. Okay, so now you notice that we created these fields to be private. And what private means is that you can only access these values, these variables, in this class. They're private to the student class. Okay, so if you talk about them elsewhere, if they're private, you don't have direct access to them. So what we do is we have these things called accessors, or maybe getters, right? So you basically access public string get name, and it just returns the name. Okay, so these allow you to access the private fields in another class. And again, I'll talk about like why we need them. Why? Because a lot of people say, why do we make them private and then we give access to them? So I'll try to explain that. And then here's our modifiers, where you would set the name. Okay, set the test 1, set test 2, and here's some other methods. Here's an average, which is an integer average. Would round it down actually, and just a few more methods. Okay, and then this kind of gives you a description of what those things I just said. So if you want to go back and get better detail, that's kind of explaining everything for that student class. Okay, all right. So I think we'll learn more by actually doing one ourselves and not just reading one that's been done. So let's try the rectangle class. Okay, so rectangle, we're going to do it in processing. Processing is not necessarily made for classes and objects, but it definitely can handle them. So we'll do it. So what I'm going to do is go to another tab right here, and I'm going to create a new tab called rectangle. Okay, I'm going to do public class rectangle, and then I'll open and close braces. So basically my definition of what a rectangle is will occur inside these braces. Okay, so we have two fields or two attributes. Who thinks they know what the two fields are? Yeah, width and height, or width and length. All that sounds good to me. Okay, so we'll say private, and I'm going to make the lengths and widths ints. Oh, I can't use width. Width is already something in length is too. Let me call it len. Okay, private int len and private int width. Length and width. Okay. I'm going to do one thing called a constructor. So the constructor, and this is called an initialized constructor. But an initialized constructor takes in your fields as parameter, the types of fields as your parameter list, as your fields are. So in this case, 2 ints. A constructor has exactly the same name as the class, so it's public rectangle. Okay, there's no return. It's like a method, but it's no return type, not even void. Public rectangle int L int W. Okay. And then we would say length equals L, width, not length and width. Len equals L, width equals W. Okay, so before we do anything else, because I know that this looks funny to a lot of you, before we do anything else, let's instantiate it. Okay, so that means let's create a rectangle object. So there's only one way we can create a rectangle object right now. That would be to pass it 2 ints. I'm going to come to our sketch here, our setup method, which is what I do. We've done most of our stuff here so far, and I'm going to do rectangle. This is a type now. A equals new rectangle 3, 4. Actually, I'll do 4, 5. Okay. That's the cookie coming from the cookie cutter. So we have, this is what a rectangle is. We defined it so far. This is what all we know is it has 2 attributes, fields, and this is how you create one. And we just created one. We gave it 2 ints. Now, if you try to do rectangle B equals new rectangle 7, it's going to say, I don't know, I don't recognize this because the parameter lists don't match up, right? Can't just give it 1 int right now. The only way we can create a rectangle would be 2 ints. Okay? And the thing about we were saying earlier about it being private, if I wanted to know A's length. Nope, not length, len. Say I wanted to know A's len. Okay, so this is not considered a different class here. So this would usually say you have private access, but this is not inside of a class, the setup method. So it's still recognizing it. But that would be the purpose. If there were 2 classes, setup's a little different because it's easy to get started with, and it's kind of out in the open. It's not inside of a class. But it would usually not recognize that. Okay. So this private field, or we have these private fields, we're going to create accessors. So if we're creating an accessor for len, when I say access, it's getting it. Okay. It would be public. The return type would be int, because it's going to return back an int. It's going to be get len. There's nothing special about this name. That's just kind of convention, right? Get and then whatever your field is. And then I'll just return len. And then I'll do public int get wid, return wid. Okay, and then the modifiers, which this could be a potential question that I've seen. Maybe I think it was in a practice thing. Modifiers are usually void. So understand what void means. If we're setting the length, we're changing the length to some value, but we don't necessarily need to get anything back from the method. So it's like a doing method, right? It's void. It's like setup. Just does stuff. It doesn't need to get an answer back. So public void set len, and then if I'm setting the len, I would need a parameter, which would be, it doesn't have to be L, I'll just do X so you don't think it does, some int. Okay, and then I'm going to assign len equal to X. And I know I did this one different than those, but it's fine. And then do one more. I'm going to show you what these two do, and then I'm going to take questions. Public void set wid int X, wid equals X. Okay. So if you're in a normal IDE for Java or C#, C++, and you have multiple classes, which they would be, you're not going to access len like this. You're going to have to do get len. Okay, and I forget which one we did first. I think it's the 4. Oh yeah, because it already printed it out. Okay, there's 4. All right, now somebody tell me how to use the modifier. How do you think we would use the modifier? Sounds like some other people are having trouble with Teams. So when I say modifier, I don't even know if I called them modifier. These are your accessors. Think about it, if you're accessing something, you're getting it. And if you're modifying it, you're setting it. So the modifier for len would be set len. And then I would do like a.set len, let's say 7. So I can set the length to be 7. And then if I get the len after that, it was 4 before I set it, and then it was 7 after I set it. Can y'all still hear me? Okay. So weird. I can't see any of you. Had a couple people text me and said they're the same thing. That's not adding it up. And then it says somebody's in the lobby. If y'all see anybody in the lobby, let them in. Yeah. Oh, it was? Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's got to be something with Teams. Yeah, okay. Because the internet connection seems fine. But if everybody's having it, it's got to be Teams. But all right, we'll try to get through. Any questions about? I know that this is different. Any questions about anything we've done so far? Okay. All right, so let's do like 2 other methods, just to show, because we've done methods. Now you're seeing there we can do methods inside of the class. All right, so public int get area. And what's in the body of the method get area? Yeah, exactly. That's where we define what get area means. So we made it. So what's the area of a rectangle? Do we know? Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to return len times width, just width. Len times width. Okay. And well, I did the same thing. Now let's also get the perimeter. Public int get perimeter. And remember, if you have a rectangle, you would add up the 2 lengths, you would add up the 2 widths, and that would be the distance around the rectangle. So if you had a 3x4 rectangle, you'd have 2 3 sides, that would be 6, and 2 4 sides, that would be 8, and then it'd be 14.